I know I locked the door. That's the part that still bothers me. Not the sound I heard at 2:17 in the morning, not the footsteps, not the shape I saw standing at the end of the hallway, not even what I found outside the next day. It's the lock, because I remember checking it twice. The deadbolt scraped hard when it turned, and the wood around the frame had that rough split near the strike plate where the landlord had promised for 6 months he was going to get around to fixing it. I touched that split with my thumb while I locked it. I remember doing it because I always did. It was a habit, the same way some people check the stove, or the windows, or whether they left their phone in the car. I locked the front door, tugged on it once, then looked through the peephole before turning away. The porch was empty. The wet concrete reflected the yellow porch light. A moth kept tapping against the bulb. Across the street, the house with the white vinyl siding was dark, except for the blue glow of a television in one of the downstairs windows. I remember all of that, because I'd started noticing small things more after living alone. You start making your own company out of details. I shut off the hall light and went to bed around 11:40. By then the rain had started, light at first, the kind that barely sounds like anything, just a soft static at the edges of the house. My bedroom was at the back, on the second floor, with one window facing the yard and another facing the driveway. It was an old duplex in a quiet neighborhood that liked to pretend it was safer than it was. The floors creaked in certain spots. The bathroom door didn't latch unless you lifted it a little. The heat clicked on loud enough to sound like someone bumping a wall. You get used to a place like that by learning its noises. That's why I woke up so fast when I heard one I didn't recognize. A long, slow click. Then the soft scrape of wood moving against wood. I opened my eyes and didn't move. Rain whispered against the back window. The room was dark except for the red digits of the alarm clock on the dresser. 2:17. I listened. Nothing. My first thought was stupid. I thought maybe I dreamed it, the way you sometimes dream a phone ringing or somebody saying your name, and it feels real for half a second. I stayed there staring into the dark, waiting for my breathing to slow down. Then I heard it again, not from upstairs, from below me. A hinge, the front door opening. My entire body went cold so fast it felt like I'd fallen into water. I sat up before I realized I was doing it. The blanket slid off my legs. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, and under that, from the first floor, a sound so quiet I almost doubted it. The front door easing shut, not slamming, not blowing in the wind, closing carefully, like somebody didn't want to be heard. I kept my eyes on the bedroom door. There are moments where your brain tries to save you by offering better explanations. Maybe the wind caught it. Maybe the landlord came by for some reason. Maybe you forgot to latch it all the way. Maybe. But every one of those excuses died for the same reason. I had locked the door, and even if I hadn't, nobody opened and closed a front door at 2:17 in the morning that carefully, unless they knew exactly what they were doing. I reached for my phone on the nightstand, so slowly it hurt. My fingers were shaking so bad I almost knocked it to the floor. I held my breath and looked at the screen. No missed calls, no notifications. 2:18. I don't know why I didn't call 911 right then. People always say that after they hear a story like this. They ask why you didn't call sooner, why you didn't run, why you didn't do the smart thing. I've asked myself all of that too. The truth is, fear doesn't make you smart. It makes you quiet. It makes you listen. And at that moment, what terrified me most wasn't the idea that someone was in the house. It was the idea that if I made any sound, they would know exactly where I was. So I sat there in the dark, phone in my hand, listening to my own house like it belonged to someone else. At first, nothing. Then, one step, A floorboard downstairs, near the entry. A pause. Another step. Slow, deliberate. Not somebody wandering. Not somebody drunk. Not somebody confused. Somebody who was trying to be careful. I slid off the bed and crouched beside it, keeping low, eyes fixed on my bedroom door. From where I was, I could see the narrow crack beneath it. Black. No light from the hallway. I thought about my options and hated all of them. My bedroom window opened over the back porch roof, but it stuck in humid weather, and if I forced it, it screamed. The closet was useless. The attached bathroom had no lock. The only real safety was the phone in my hand. I opened the keypad and hovered my thumb over the numbers. Below me, another creak, then another, then silence. That silence was worse than the footsteps. Silence means they stopped for a reason. Silence means they're listening too. I crouched there for what felt like 10 minutes, but was probably less than one. The rain picked up a little. Water ticked through the gutter outside. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked twice and then went quiet. Still nothing from downstairs. I dialed 911. I didn't hit call. I was waiting for one more sound, one more proof, something to push me over that line where this stopped being doubt and started being real. Maybe some part of me was still embarrassed by the idea of whispering to an operator that I thought someone was inside, only for them to tell me it was nothing. Then I heard footsteps on the stairs, not rushing, just one, then another. The old staircase in that house had 12 steps from the first floor to the landing, and then 4 more to the top. I knew that because I'd carried furniture up them when I moved in and counted everyone with my teeth clenched. And now, crouched in the dark, I counted them again. 1, 2, 3, a pause. 4, 5, 6. Every step made the wood complain softly, under a careful amount of weight. Whoever it was had probably already figured out the same thing I had. This house made noise, and they were taking their time anyway. 7, 8. My thumb pressed call. The phone jumped to the call screen, and the tiniest sound came from the speaker, so loud to me in that moment, it might as well have been a siren. I yanked it away from my face and pressed it to my ear. One ring. Down the hall, a board creaked, not on the stairs anymore, on the second floor. 911, what's your emergency? I put my hand over my mouth before I answered. My voice came out so low, I barely recognized it. Someone's in my house. The operator asked for my address, and I whispered it while staring at the bedroom door. Are you in a secure room? No. Can you lock the door? I looked at the knob. No lock. No. Officers are on the way. Stay on the line with me. Do not leave the room unless you have to. Can you hear the intruder now? I opened my mouth to answer and froze. Something moved outside my bedroom. A shadow crossed under the crack of the door. I felt every muscle in my body lock at once. The operator was saying something, but I couldn't hear the words anymore. The shadow stopped. There was no mistake this time. Someone was standing in the hallway, right outside my bedroom. I pressed myself flatter against the side of the bed and stared at the knob. It didn't turn. Whoever was out there just stood there, maybe listening, maybe smiling, maybe looking at the thin strip of dark under the door and knowing exactly what side of it I was on. The operator's voice came thin and frantic through the phone. Sir, are you there? I forced myself to whisper. They're outside my room. What room are you in? Back bedroom, upstairs. Officers are 2 minutes out. Stay quiet. If you can move away from the door, do it now. Then from the hallway came the softest sound I have ever heard in my life. A fingertip dragging down the wood of my bedroom door, slow, from top to bottom, a dry, papery scrape. I bit down so hard on the side of my hand I tasted blood. The fingertip stopped, then 3 soft taps, not knocking, just enough to let me know they knew I was in there. I think that was the worst part of the whole night. Worse than the footsteps, worse than seeing anything. That little scrape and those 3 taps. No rush, no panic, no trying to force the door. Just a message. I know where you are. The operator kept telling me officers were almost there. I remember that. I remember also knowing with absolute certainty that almost was a worthless word if the door opened before then. The knob still didn't move. Instead, I heard a sound retreat down the hall. One creak, then another. Not running, just walking away. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I listened as those slow steps went toward the front of the house again. Then the stairs. 1, 2, 3. I counted them down this time. At the bottom, silence again. The operator asked if I still heard him. I whispered, yes. 30 seconds later, red and blue light flickered across my back window. I almost cried right there. Then I heard the front door downstairs open hard this time, followed by voices. Police! I stood too fast and hit my shoulder on the bed frame. Pain shot down my arm. I didn't care. I yanked the bedroom door open and nearly tripped in the hallway. The upstairs was empty. Every light was still off. The darkness looked normal again, and that made it somehow worse. I ran to the top of the stairs and saw flashlights moving below. 2 officers came in through the front. Another cut around the side of the house. They cleared every room while I stood on the landing barefoot with my phone still in my hand. Nobody was there. That's what they told me. Nobody was there now. The front door showed no sign of forced entry, which led one of them to ask the question in a tone that was trying to stay respectful, but still made me want to hit him. Are you sure it was locked? I told him yes. He nodded the way people do when they don't believe you, but don't want to say it. They checked the windows, the back door, the basement access, the little mud room off the kitchen. Nothing obvious, nothing broken, nothing stolen. Then the older cop found something at the end of the upstairs hallway. The wall there had old paint, off-white over older cream, and against it, at shoulder height, were 3 thin marks, vertical, fresh, like somebody had dragged dirty fingernails down the wall while standing outside my room. I watched the officer look at them. He didn't say they were from an intruder. He didn't say they weren't. He just looked at me and asked if I had a pet. I said no. They walked the property once more. Took a statement, told me to call if I noticed anything else, and left just before 3:10. I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch downstairs with every light in the house on and a kitchen knife on the coffee table like that was going to save me. The rain stopped around 4 o'clock. The sky turned the color of dirty metal. Every few minutes, I walked to the front door and checked the deadbolt just to feel it click. It was around 6:30, when daylight finally made the house look stupid and harmless again, that I found the second thing. There was mud on the inside of the front hallway. Not a lot, just enough to see. A partial shoe print on the old runner rug. Then another faded one, near the stairs. The officers had come in with wet boots, sure, but these were different. Smaller, narrower, the tread pattern wasn't the same, and they didn't lead out of the house. They led in, one print by the front door, another near the stairs, then nothing, as if whoever left them had stepped carefully after that. I took pictures. I called the non-emergency number. Different officers came by later that morning. They were polite. They looked at the photos, measured the prints, took more notes. Still no forced entry. Still no clear explanation. The landlord came over around noon and acted annoyed that I was upset. He blamed the warped frame, said sometimes old doors didn't catch right, said maybe somebody bumped the knob from outside and it opened. I asked him if warped frames tapped on bedroom doors. He had no answer for that. By evening, I had convinced myself I was leaving. Not forever. At least not yet. But for a few nights. I called my sister and asked if I could stay with her. She lived 30 minutes away with her husband and 2 kids. She said yes immediately and asked if I wanted her husband to come get me. I lied and said no. I packed a duffel bag instead and spent the rest of the afternoon moving room to room in my own house like I was trespassing. I kept expecting to notice something else moved. A drawer open, a window cracked, a shape in a reflection. Nothing. By 7:15 that night I was ready to go. The rain had washed the street clean. The sky was going dark again. I loaded my bag into the car and came back inside one last time to grab my toothbrush from the upstairs bathroom. That's when I heard the sound. 3 soft taps from upstairs. I froze in the kitchen with my keys in my hand. I told myself it was the heat, a pipe, a branch, anything. Then I heard it again. 3 taps, slow, from the second-floor hallway, exactly where my bedroom was. I don't remember deciding to leave. One second I was in the kitchen, and the next I was outside slamming the front door behind me and backing down the porch steps so fast I nearly fell. I got in the car, locked it, and sat there staring at the upstairs window. The curtain in my bedroom moved. Not much, just enough, like somebody had let it fall back into place. I drove to my sister's house with my chest so tight I could barely breathe. I stayed there 4 nights. On the second day, the landlord changed the locks and made a show of it, like he was doing me a huge favor. On the 3rd day, I went back to the duplex with my brother-in-law in broad daylight to get more clothes and some work stuff. We walked through every room together. He checked the attic access, the basement, the closets, even the crawl space behind the water heater. Nobody, nothing. He told me maybe some creep had gotten in once and left, and now my brain was doing the rest. I wanted to believe him, I really did. But then he found something under the kitchen sink. A paper grocery bag folded in half and pushed into the back corner behind cleaning supplies I never used. Inside it was a bottle of water, a granola bar, and a pair of black knit gloves. Not mine. He looked at me and I looked at him, and neither of us said anything for a second. Then he called the police from my kitchen. That changed the tone of everything. Officers came again, this time with a lot less polite doubt. They dusted a few surfaces, bagged the gloves and the bottle, took the bag, checked the house harder than before. One of them asked if there was anywhere someone could have hidden for a longer period of time. I laughed when he said it, not because it was funny, because until that second, I had been trying not to think it. The house had a basement, low ceiling, old furnace, cinder block walls, 1 bare bulb, and a small storage room partitioned off with unfinished framing and plywood shelves. I almost never went down there. There wasn't much reason to. Laundry was in the mud room, and the breaker panel was on the 1st floor. The basement was just dead space and old smell. They found nothing down there except dust, and an old mattress leaned against the wall behind the furnace. The mattress didn't belong to me. The landlord said it had been there when I moved in. He acted offended that anyone implied otherwise. I moved out 2 weeks later. That should be the end of it. It isn't, because if it ended there, I'd have a story about a break-in or an attempted one, and that would be bad enough. But what turned it into something else, something that still gets into my head late at night, was what happened after I left. At first, it was quiet. I stayed with my sister for another week, then rented a small apartment on the other side of town. 3rd floor, security door, better locks, brighter parking lot. I told almost nobody where I'd moved. Work, family, 1 friend. That was it. For the first month, I felt stupid every time I jumped at a noise. The apartment building had normal apartment sounds, doors closing, TVs through walls, people walking overhead, somebody's dog whining when they left for work. I hated all of it, but it was at least human noise. Predictable noise. Then The note started. The first one was on my windshield under the driver's side wiper. No envelope, just a small piece of paper folded once. Inside, in neat block letters, it said, "You lock this door too." My knees actually buckled a little when I read it. I looked around the parking lot so fast it made me dizzy. Afternoon sun, 4 other cars, a woman carrying groceries, a kid on a scooter, nobody staring, nobody running. Just a completely normal Tuesday with that sentence sitting in my hand. I called the apartment office first, then the police, then I checked my front door camera footage because unlike the old duplex, this place had one. Nobody had approached my apartment. Nobody on the camera looked suspicious. The lot camera near my building didn't catch enough angle to see who put the note there. The officer who came out took the paper and asked the same questions they always ask. Who knew where I lived? Whether I had an ex? Whether I was in any disputes? Whether anyone had reason to scare me? I kept saying no. The second note came 5 days later. This one was taped to my apartment door. I found it at 11:20 at night when I got back from grabbing takeout. Same neat block letters, nice lights, still looked dark inside. I stood there in the hallway, staring at it, while every instinct I had screamed at me not to unlock the door. The camera should have caught that one. It didn't. When I reviewed the feed with the officer the next day, there was a gap of 11 minutes. The screen jumped from 9:43 to 9:54, like nothing happened at all. The property manager blamed a Wi-Fi issue. I bought a second camera and plugged it into the bedroom facing the living room, then a third one aimed at the front door from inside. I replaced the screws in the strike plate with 3-inch wood screws. I bought a door bar brace and a motion alarm for the windows. I carried a bat beside the bed and slept with every light on for a week. Nothing happened. That's the pattern if you're wondering. Long enough silence to make you question yourself, then one thing, then silence again. It changes you faster than constant fear ever could. Constant fear burns hot and then settles. This was different. This was a slow tightening, a private kind of erosion. I stopped going out unless I had to. I changed grocery stores. I checked behind the shower curtain when I came home. I started looking at people's shoes because of the prints in the hallway at the duplex. The third note came inside. That's the one that finally broke me. I came home from work and found it on my kitchen counter, dead center, like it belonged there. The security cameras showed no entry. The front door was still locked. The windows were closed. I watched the footage 3 times. I watched myself leave that morning. I watched an empty apartment all day. Then I watched myself come home at 6:11, unlock the door, step inside, freeze, and stare at the counter. The note said, "You should check the bedroom window." I did not check the bedroom window. I ran back out of the apartment and called 911 from the hallway, like my lungs were full of glass. Police came, cleared the place, found no one. Then one of them went into the bedroom. The window was locked, but on the outside of the glass, pressed from the other side in something greasy and pale, was the print of a human hand. Not a full print, just the fingers, like someone had rested their hand there while looking in. 3rd floor, no balcony, no fire escape outside that side of the building. The officer stared at it for a long time before he said anything. "Do you know anyone who would do this?" I was so tired by then, I almost laughed again. Know them? No. But I knew they were patient. I knew they liked doors. I knew they liked being just close enough to touch something I touched. The next week, the police finally got something useful. Not fingerprints, not DNA, not a face on camera. A car. One of the lot cameras from a neighboring building caught a dark sedan idling near the back exit of my apartment complex on 3 different nights over the previous 2 weeks. Same car, same time window, lights off. It wasn't enough to identify the driver. The plate was unreadable, but it was enough for an officer to tell me, carefully, that this was probably not random anymore. Probably, as if there had still been a chance all of this was coincidence. I moved again. This time I didn't tell anyone, except immediate family and my boss. I took a week off work and drove 2 hours south to stay with a friend while I signed a lease in a town I'd never planned on living in. Smaller place, better neighborhood, a building with key fob entry and interior hallways. I changed my phone number. I shut down my social media. I paid to break the old lease. I didn't care. I wanted distance more than money. For 6 weeks, I thought it was over. Nothing. No notes. No missing footage. No strange cars. No sounds. I started sleeping again. Not well, but enough. I stopped checking every corner first. I stopped holding my breath before opening the front door. I started to feel stupid all over again. But this time, in a better way. Like maybe I had escaped, and now all I had left was the memory of it. Then on a Sunday night in October, while brushing my teeth, I looked up into the bathroom mirror and saw something behind me. It wasn't a person. Not at first. Just motion in the dark hall outside the bathroom. I spun so hard, I hit the sink with my hip. Hallway empty. Bedroom door open. Living room dark. I stood there listening to the buzzing bathroom light and my own ragged breathing. The apartment was silent. I told myself it was my imagination. Then my phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. One photo message. No text. I opened it. It was a picture of my apartment door, taken from the hallway outside. Current. On the floor near the threshold. Visible in the frame were my work boots, the ones I had kicked off 15 minutes earlier. My legs went weak so fast I had to grab the sink. Another message came in before I could think. 3 words. Check the lock. I ran to the front door. The deadbolt was turned, unlocked. I stared at it without understanding what I was seeing. I had locked it when I came in. I knew I had. I always locked it. Always. My hand was still on the deadbolt when 3 soft taps came from the other side. Not loud, not urgent. Just enough. Same as before. 3 taps. I backed away from the door so fast I slammed into the wall. My phone lit up again. Look through. I did not want to. That's the truth. Every cell in my body knew that whatever waited on the other side of that peephole would not be something I ever got to forget. But fear does strange things. It makes certain choices feel mandatory, even when they're terrible. I stepped forward, 1 inch at a time, until my face was close enough to the door that I could smell the metal and old paint. I looked through the peephole. At first, all I saw was the warped fisheye shape of the empty hall. Then a face moved into view, so close it filled the lens. Male, pale, older than I expected, sunken eyes with dark crescents under them like he hadn't slept in weeks, wet gray hair combed back but stringy at the ends, mouth slightly open, not smiling, not frowning, just breathing, looking directly at me. I stumbled backward and fell. The taps came again, 3, then his voice through the door, low and soft and almost gentle. I knew you'd look. I don't remember calling 911 that time. I know I did because the call log says so. I know officers responded because I gave statements, but my memory of those next 10 minutes is shredded around the edges. I remember dragging a chair under the doorknob, even though it opened inward, and the chair wouldn't have helped much. I remember backing into the kitchen, holding the biggest knife I had, while the operator told me officers were 2 minutes out. I remember the silence outside after he spoke. No footsteps leaving, no more tapping, just waiting. When police arrived, the hall was empty. No one on the stairwell camera, no one in the parking lot camera, no one on the front entrance camera matching the timeline. Nothing. The only thing they found was a wet handprint on the wall opposite my apartment door, about eye level, like someone had steadied themselves there while waiting. I moved one final time after that. Different state, different job, different number. The notes stopped. The messages stopped. The taps stopped. It has been a little over 2 years now. Most nights, I can almost convince myself it's over for real. most nights, but every now and then, usually when rain starts after midnight and the house goes quiet in the exact wrong way, I still do the same thing before bed. I lock the front door. I tug it once. I touch the frame with my thumb. Then I look through the peephole before turning away, and every single time, there's a second, just 1 second, where I expect to see that face already there, close enough to fill the glass, waiting like he never left. There's one last thing I haven't told you. I kept the very first note, the one from the windshield. I don't know why. Maybe because I wanted proof it happened. Maybe because part of me knew no story sounds real, even when it is. The police gave it back after they were done with it. I sealed it in a plastic bag and put it in a box with old papers and forgot about it for a while. A month ago, while cleaning out a closet, I found it again. The paper had yellowed a little around the fold. The block letters were the same as I remembered. You locked this door too. Only this time, when I turned it over in the light, I noticed something on the back that I swear was not there before. A faint impression, like the pressure of writing from another page on top of it. I shaded over it with the side of a pencil, the way people do in old movies to reveal indentations. More letters came through. Not many, just enough. An address. Not mine, the duplex, my old address, and beneath it, one line, still opened. I burned that note in a metal bucket in my backyard. I watched it curl black and disappear down to ash. I stood there until the last ember died. Then I went inside, locked the back door, checked the front, turned off the lights room by room, and stood in the dark hall, listening to the house settle. A normal house, a safer house, a locked house, and from somewhere outside, far enough away to almost be imagination, I heard 3 soft taps. If you like stories like this, hit the subscribe button and join the Insomniac.